All right, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Lackawanna City Council and various department heads, we'd like to welcome everyone to the Lackawanna City Council April 24th, 2023 City Council meeting. The first order of business is to consider in our caucus, and the caucus is used to consider the various agenda items to discuss amongst the council members any questions, any opinions, so on and so forth. And then after we're done with that, we'll move right into the formal meeting. And then that's when the voting takes place on each of the agenda items. To that end, up until the departmental reports, those are administrative. We'll take that at the regular meeting. The departmental reports, first, number one is from our city clerk, monthly revenue report for March 2023. Any council members have any comments or any questions on item number one? If not, moving on to item number two, I put this on the agenda as a result of the newly formed traffic safety board in Lackawanna. A letter had been sent to the city council by Director Mark Kuig of the Lackawanna Municipal Housing Authority requesting permission to reinstall the speed bumps in front of the Jeffrey Taggart Memorial Playground, formerly Odell Playground. Those had been installed last year without city approval. Apparently they've met with some success, but that letter for permission to reinstall them was referred to the Traffic Safety Board for consideration and opinion. That letter has been generated and signed by Orlando Taylor, the chairperson of that committee. We debated on several occasions the pros and cons of speed control devices. And first of all, I'd like to say that we would not have been able to progress with any consideration of the implications involved in establishing speed bumps had it not been for the efforts of Rick Judah and our law department, who put together a very comprehensive, very helpful, very informative collection of laws and procedures and past practices in various communities in New York State as well as elsewhere. And that gave us a template from which the safety board could apply in the instant case. And the takeaway from all of that is outlined in the letter from the chairman of the Traffic Safety Board. First of all, it is not the idea of a traffic control device is not codified or entered in New York State law by statute in any traffic control device manual or legislation. It is, however, been incorporated as a device to be used in traffic and street design, so that when it avoids the traffic control device parameters and statute and control of the state legislature for that portion of it, and instead refers or transfers the responsibility and the jurisdiction of that concept to traffic design. To that end, it's no longer considered or labeled a traffic control device. It is now considered a traffic calming device, CALMING. And while they had been really kind of ostracized at the beginning because of the legal implications, they have since become pretty widespread. And I'm using the example of the city of Buffalo, wherein our engineering consultants were present for a city council meeting several months ago and indicated that the city of Buffalo undertook the installation or consideration of the installation of speed bumps in one occasion that was the subject of an 18-month study of the area, the residents, and the implications. What happened was the speed bumps were installed and they greatly enhanced the quality of life and the traffic calming, for lack of a better phrase, in that particular area. Furthermore, I've come to learn, and we're still anticipating more information forthcoming from the City of Buffalo Engineering Department, that the City of Buffalo has incorporated that concept not only on the original experimental street, but in, if I have my number correctly, 1,500 additional locations. And what they are using, they've gotten away from the speed bump or speed hump concept, but they're implementing a modification of the actual roadway. And for lack of a better description, we've all run into or experienced the rumble strips that exist on the thruway, so that if you travel too far on the shoulders, you start hitting those devices that cause the tires to cause you to wake up and realize you're in the wrong area. This seems to be the best practice at this point in time. So after much debate, we took a vote of the 6 members. It was passed 4-2 to continue the experiment for the Jeffrey Taggart Playground by authorizing or suggesting to the City Council to consider authorizing the Municipal Housing Authority to reinstall those. However, there's 2 cautions. One, it was a best practice to have appropriate signage to notify any motorists, vehicular traffic, that they are approaching a speed bump and to react accordingly. And 2, there should be a survey of the residents directly affected on those streets where the speed bumps are located, and they're suggesting a positive response of at least 75% before considering installing the speed bumps. I've heard that there's signage that has been placed in those areas. I don't believe a study of the community residents has been initiated, but that will be, that is in the works, to my understanding. So based on that, the recommendation to the City Council from the Safety Board is it has been a positive by 4-2, but on an interim, temporary, experimental basis only. I guess that's it.
Okay, so is our vote today contingent upon the 75% approval of the residents, or are we going to approve it first and await because if we do that, it's kind of a backwards vote. How do we approach this?
Well, I can't speak for all the members, and I'm certainly not giving a legal opinion unless Mr. Judah does. But since these speed bumps were placed there last year without city approval, they have been met with success. I do believe that in order to protect ourselves as a city, that eventually the residents will have to be queried on this topic. But I'm willing to bet, based on my conversations with members with residents in that area, that they're all in favor of it. So I would caution that those 2 items, the signage, appropriate signage warning motorists there's a speed bump approaching, and eventual querying of the residents to be forthcoming if for any future more permanent, regular installation to be considered. But for today's purposes, if it's this body's decision to take that up and vote on it, whether to approve, give permission to housing, or to withhold permission, I don't see those 2 items necessarily hindering that, as long as those are cautionary and conditional items to be eventually accomplished. Mr. Judah.
So as far as the approval by the residents, 75% or whatever, I don't think that would be dispositive of any issue involving negligence on the city or anything like that. I think as long as it's approved on an experimental basis and that the signs are properly located, and I don't know how you would do that, whether it's done through traffic safety or through the city engineers, just to make sure the signs are in a location where motorists can see them and give them sufficient time before they actually get to the speed bump. I think that would be more dispositive of whether or not, if something were to happen to someone.
So better. Thank you. And my understanding is there are signs that do exist and have been installed. It might have been housing that did that, so
Right.
I'm not sure.
So what due diligence has the city done in order to approve, as Attorney Judah had stated, that whether the signage itself is appropriate? And then B, are the actual devices that they implemented, are they within the standards of what the city would deem as appropriate? Are they of good quality? Are they not? What have we done on our end to ensure that our liability is secured in order to make the appropriate vote today?
Okay, I think, and that's a very good question, obviously. I think the physical structure known as a speed bump could take many forms and has many different designs. The letter from the safety board does not address the design and does not address a citywide policy that is for the future. There's language in that letter that states this permission is limited strictly to the Jeffrey Taggart Playground for the summer months to be decided when they're installed and when they're removed by the city council. So it may be something for the council or the city to consider in the future if you want to codify a policy going forward for other locations for the installation or use of speed bumps. And the interesting thing, and I forgot to say this, is those rumble type strips, instead of speed bumps, they're right into the asphalt and they do not hinder snow plowing. You're familiar with that, right, Tony?
The humps?
They're not humps, they're
Oh.
actually ridges.
Oh.
Yeah, so that it has the same effect. It calls the motorist's attention to the fact to slow down, but it isn't a hindrance. A bump doesn't really affect the vehicle itself to become a danger, less of a danger of losing control, and again does not interfere with snow removal. So it doesn't have to be just a summer deal.
Okay, but I think what Amira is asking, I think what she's asking is, does this go back to the traffic safety board for approval of the signage and the type of apparatus, the location of the signs, or are we gonna consult with the city engineers? Is that really?
What due diligence has been done on behalf of the city other than just rubber stamping this today? I'm privy to what structures or devices were set up. I'm privy to how the signage is, but that doesn't mean that it falls within the parameters necessary. So what has the city done to ensure that they are up to whatever standards is either by the according to the standards of the memo that
Either
you
the
issued,
DOT or.
right, or the traffic committee?
I don't think there's a specific outline of what is proposed for signage other than the standard. You've seen the DOT has used in the past bump ahead,
Yes.
something along those lines.
So if that's the case and there's no established regs from the DOT as to how these need to be set up, I think it's probably, it would probably be in our best interest to, if you're gonna do it on an experimental basis, do it with some consultation with the city engineers.
Yeah.
And maybe Tony could get a cost or something, at least have them look at it once it's installed and give us an opinion as to whether or not it's there's some safety thing that we didn't think
The
of.
signs are definitely there.
And we could condition possibly an approval, both on a temporary basis, which I think is important for the housing authority to put these up, condition it on appropriate signage being installed.
Right.
And if
And
it's
reviewed
not
by the
installed.
city engineer at some point.
Yeah.
Through the DPW department or something.
Okay, so again, I guess back to my first question is, are those approvals necessary in order for us to vote today? Because we as a governing body have to know whether or not we're voting blindly or if things are done in an order that makes sense.
Well, I think if we can condition any approval on the installation of appropriate signage, then that covers us, I would think, legally, right, Rick?
Yes, and,
To a
and,
degree.
and when you say appropriate signage, I think the only way it would become appropriate is if Tony enlisted an expert or a professional engineer to at least evaluate it and look at maybe what other municipalities are doing or what products are out there.
So the signage was made up by the sign company that we use for the city. They're certified by DOT. They can't put out any other signs unless it's.
Right, but my concern is if you have a speed bump here and you put a sign 10 feet in front of it,
I got you.
it may not do you any good if you're going 40 miles an hour. Because by the time you see the sign, you're on the bump.
Right.
But there's got to be some standard or something that our engineers could help us with. And at least if we had something in writing, so I would condition any approval on input from our city engineers.
We could do an inspection, on-site inspection once they're up, get an approval, or if there is a problem with it, get some kind of notification of what needs to be done to have it approved, DOT approved.
Are you referring to the sign or the actual?
Both sign and actual bump itself, all of it.
Well, these signs, they're before stop signs. These bumps are.
They're at
gonna
an
be put
intersection.
At intersections where stop signs are at. So they shouldn't be going 40 miles an hour coming up to a stop sign.
Or you'd be surprised.
Well, that's why we're looking for speed bumps, right?
That's why a lot of speed bumps are more in towards the middle of the street, because you're trying to slow them down as they're traveling on the street itself.
Right.
Not
Are
right
they
at an
deemed
intersection
appropriate
with a
to be at a
stop sign, 'cause
sign area? Is
it's
it
two ways
redundant to
there,
be
yeah.
at a
One
stop
thing
Well,
that's
sign?
so you're stopping anyway, so
Yeah,
you're not really gonna speed up, so there should be like some sort of distance between an intersection with a stop sign and where a speed bump
And I'm more
should
worried
be.
about
I don't know if it's
motorcycles than cars.
mandated or anything like that, but it's just common sense that you would think
I
that would slow the traffic
I
down.
don't recall seeing any directions in that material you gave to us, Rick, saying what the required signage and footage in front of speed bumps. So it's got to be reasonable in its intent, right?
Right.
To give
Well, I don't-
appropriate notice.
There may be some new standards out there. I don't know. You know what I mean? The stuff I gave you, some of it was dated.
Yeah, some of it was older.
You know what I mean? So,
Was there any problems there last year at all? I mean, with the speed bumps?
and if you read that also, what might work in Florida isn't going to work here. You know what I mean? Because of our weather conditions and things like that.
And technically, DOT doesn't really control neighborhood streets. They're more for,
Right.
highways and 4-lane roads and state roads or county roads. Technically don't get into municipalities and that, because that would be your own ordinance.
Yeah, that language was in there, that most municipalities, it's in their own jurisdiction, their
Correct.
own decision as to handling these types of
Right.
issues.
Okay, I have another question as far as, so are we tabling this until further study? I mean, in-house study, or are we voting on this?
Okay,
That's my
here's the
first question.
practicality of it. I would be inclined to give permission today or take a vote on it today, because the weather's gonna be changing, the kids are already using the playgrounds. So if we wait for further action by the Traffic Safety Board, we don't meet again till May. By the time a decision comes out, if a decision is even made at the May meeting, informing the city council, we're into June already, the kids have been playing the playgrounds for 2 months.
Understood.
So I think there's some urgency here to look at, so I would ask we consider doing something with it today.
And then I don't want to say final question because I might have more, but I understand that the Traffic and Safety Committee is a separate board than ours. However, we do share two common individuals on both boards. Will those individuals be recusing themselves from these types of votes moving forward, including today? How are we going to work that?
I don't think there's a conflict of interest or a recusal necessary.
No, and the Traffic
It's
Safety
advisory, no?
Board is an advisory board, so they really don't have any authority except to give you.
We can make a
You know, it's like
recommendation, it's up to this board to decide.
It's like me as a department head, giving you my advice. It's still your vote and your decision. And the people on the advisory board that are non-council members have no vote in what you do.
Correct.
It's the council that votes.
Anyone else have any questions?
So on the question, how is this gonna be worded? I mean, that's gonna take a while to word the motion, if we get that far.
I would suggest, and maybe Rick could decide, making the motion to approve on a temporary experimental basis, allowing the LMHA to reinstall the speed bumps on the aforesaid locations as addressed last year, conditioned on 1, appropriate legal signage, and 2, the eventual polling or querying or questioning of residents to accomplish their desired effects or desired opinions, or whatever the case may be.
And an approval from engineering, final.
Refer to
approval.
engineering and DPW for.
Another point is that playground, I know I worked down there for years, I enjoyed myself. Everyone going to that playground's got to cross the street. There's no,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like a big square, and every kid going to that playground's got to cross the street, so.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they can walk next door. Like
No,
our
it's a good
playground.
point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
I just had something.
okay, that's all I got.
The other thing is, you know, even if you pass something today, you can always you can revoke it at any time. Whether it's next meeting, 2 meetings, if you know, have complaints from citizens, that's your ward. Something comes up that the board is unaware of, I certainly will make them aware of it, and you can always, you know, vote to tell Tony or the DPW to remove it immediately or to stop using it. Nothing is permanent.
Or withdraw the permission.
You can always withdraw. Even if you vote and you say, I want to put permanent speed bumps in, you can rescind that next week or next meeting or have a special meeting or whatever you wanted to do.
Who would be going around to the neighborhoods to ask these questions?
Who would be?
Yeah, who would that be up to?
Well, it would be up to the city. Yeah, John's already been assigned that task.
Well, maybe Mr. Kulik will assist with that.
Yeah, but for future purposes, I'm sorry, future purposes, there has to be some kind of mechanism to question the residents, because it may not just be Jeffrey Taggart Playground.
Right.
But our city clerk wanted input.
Well, I just want to make it clear with the mayor, when you mentioned table, this item is already on the table.
Mhm.
So you can't table, it would have to be removed from the table and then voted on separately. The only thing that we would be doing today, prior to approving or not approving the council, would be to receive and file the council president's communication
Okay,
and the attachment that goes with it. And then later in the meeting, under table items, the council would decide whether or not they want to untable or take off the table the
Got it.
initial item and then vote yea or nay.
okay.
Just so
So
we're
I
clear
guess-
on the process.
I guess it
Glad
would
you
be,
pointed
are we
that out.
tabling, are we gonna further table the untabled item?
Or are we gonna not take it off the table?
Or that?
Right. All right, anybody else on that item? All right, moving on to item number 3 from Director of Public Safety, request council approval of the 2023 Lackawanna Leg of Annual Law Enforcement Torch Run Walk to be held 11 a.m. Sunday, May 21st, 23. Event will begin at the end of the Senior Center, 230 Martin Road. Additional details are on the flyer attached or at the clerk's office. Anyway, this was done last year, very successful, good cause. Anyone have any questions, or Director Laxo, do you have anything you want to say?
I am not the Director of Public Safety.
No, I know that.
I'm sorry, what
But
would
these
we?
kinds of events are more recreational. I didn't know if you
I'm
had
s-
any input.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. The only thing that my department really handled with this was making sure there were no conflicts. It doesn't represent any conflicts with my department. There's nothing else scheduled. Pretty much, that's the beginning and end of my involvement in this event.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies.
All right.
I attended last year, it was a great event. Caitlin did a great job, Caitlin Jaworski, Lackawanna Police, did a great job in organizing it. It was a great day. I encourage the citizens of Lackawanna to participate. It's a great cause. You get a cool commemorative t-shirt or long sleeve tee of your choice. It's a great event and I look forward to this year.
Thank you. Anyone else have any input on item number 3?
Just my apologies. I was not anticipating being questioned.
It's no problem. Moving on to item number 4, this time from the Director of Recreation. Request City Council approve use of Bethlehem Park and Ridgewood Village playgrounds by the YMCA for its Y and the Fly program. Program will run June 27th to August 29th, 23, on Tuesday mornings and afternoons between 10 and 2. Insurance document attached. Again, Director, anything you want to add for our consideration?
Just that this is a program that the YMCA has implemented in the last few years, and they've been doing it in the city of Lackawanna since the middle of the COVID era, and it's very popular and very fruitful, and we're just eager to continue it at whatever playgrounds they wish to utilize.
Yeah, I'll also comment. It was implemented for the first time at the Bethlehem Park Playground, which had a great response. It has already been at the LMHA Taggart Playground for the past few years, which also was a great opportunity for kids to get out. They distribute books. They have a whole bunch of different types of sports equipment that they bring with them. They bring lunch. They hydrate the kids. And the kids have a great time. I myself had a great time with the kids last year, and a lot of people have been asking, when is it coming back? So there's a popular demand for this particular, and it's a great program because it's at no cost to the city. Am I correct, Brian?
Absolutely no cost, and they are kind of focusing on some of our more isolated playgrounds. Bethlehem Park or Ridgewood Village are kind of communities within the community.
Right.
So they're really looking to bring additional resources to isolated parts of the city that it might be difficult for a child to get access to. So there's no lose in this for the city.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to comment on item number 4? Now moving on to item number 5 from the Director of Purchasing. Request City Clerk advertise for bids for electricity and natural gas. City's buying both from Erie County Co-op on a variable rate basis, and we may be able to realize savings based on his research. And this would authorize him to look into it by securing bids for our usage. Anyone have any questions or issues on item number 5?
Once the bids come in, do we approve that? We would be approving the selected bid. Am I correct?
Well, I think the bids are being secured for research purposes only at the outset.
Mm-hmm.
And then a recommendation may be forthcoming to decide to go with a particular provider should that realize a savings for the city.
Yeah.
At that point in time, I think we would then approve, right, Mr. City Clerk?
That would be correct.
All right.
Anyone else? Moving on to item number 6 from our Commissioner of the DPW, request City Council approve final proposal to cover additional costs of Center Street reconstruction project, additional cost of $173,816.50. Supporting documentations are provided. Tony, anything you want to add for our consideration?
Oh, no, I just think that this would solidify that whole project by putting new sidewalks and approaches on the west side of the street. And I think it would be best for the whole job in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone have any questions or issues with this, item number 6? If not, moving on to item number 7 from the City Controller. Request City Council approval of attached ordinance regarding your actual expenses totaling $1,255,173.93 related to the November 22nd and December 22nd snowstorms and FEMA states of emergency. Just so to the fellow members of the City Council, I was concerned about the figure here because, quite frankly, I found it to be confusing since we had approved on a prior occasion around $600 and some thousand for the first snowstorm, and then to have this included, the first snowstorm, in with this $1,255,000 appropriation for the second snowstorm. I just couldn't figure out how the numbers would work, or if they were working, or what was going on. So we had a lengthy telephone conversation. I was on it, Director of Purchasing, Tom Nicometto was on it, Mayor Iafallo was on it, and Linda, our controller, was on it. And although it got contentious a little bit from here and there during that telephone conversation, it was clarified to my understanding and satisfied me personally as to what was transpiring here, that there isn't a duplication of efforts. There is an effort to, one, get as much as reimbursement as we can and are allowed by law through FEMA reimbursement, even though this morning's paper did include some kind of a reduction or a qualification for those parameters. But when the numbers finally came out or explained to me, I was satisfied with how these numbers were derived at. Having said that, the city controller was good enough to give copies of a breakdown as best as they could put together that I have in front of me and I'll hand out. I just got handed them today before the meeting, and I'll hand them out to the rest of the council members. But if opening this up to the rest of the council, do you have any questions on this item number 7?
If I may add something.
Yes.
I was in Mr. Nicometto's office this morning at 9 o'clock, and I spent a good half hour with him going over everything that's on here, and from both storms. He was showing me on the computer, you know, this line, that line, you know, what we put in for the police overtime, the fire, using the police equipment, even though using the police cars, there was 15,000 in there for that, just the wear and tear during the 4 or 5 days, and all different kinds of examples. And I walked out of there satisfied. I'm sorry I couldn't include anyone else, but I'm just reiterating what. And then I told him to get a hold of you, and apparently he did. So, and it boils down to the same stuff, you know, last minute. You know, I'm been the one that's complaining all the time about it, but you know, I just happen to be up there today, and you know, I'm not trying to sway anybody or anything, but I'm satisfied with the explanation.
Well,
And
and along those same lines, Councilman, one of the other things I was concerned about was the timeliness of getting these figures and paying these contractors.
right.
For fear that in the future, should we need them, they're not going to pay any attention to Lackawanna because we don't pay on a timely basis. And so I was concerned about that. And there may be some ill feelings along those lines. I don't know, Tony.
Yeah.
Well, I've spoken with both contractors a number of occasions, so it is a lengthy, you know, they put their money up front, and in 4 or 5 months without getting paid, it does affect us in wanting them to come back here or them wanting to do any work for us in the future. So I just hope that we could get these bills paid as quick as possible. And just to give Tom Nicometto a little bit of credit, he got dumped on our grant writer that was supposed to be doing this kind of work. For some reason, she's MIA, and she really screwed up a lot, this whole project. So Tom got dumped on, and that's why a lot of this was late. It wasn't Tom's fault. He actually did a great job doing this.
Yeah, and the big thank you, Tony, and to piggyback on that, Tom has assumed, I don't think by choice, the responsibility of a number of projects, or at least digging into the numbers on a number of projects that have been very enlightening and calming and reassuring, at least to me, because I've questioned him on a number of issues, and he gave me very appropriate answers, very timely, very up-to-date answers, and I'm very comfortable with his being involved in these, to his credit. And that's not in his just job description. So he's actually going above and beyond what he's required to do. And we, as a council, as a city, should be grateful, I would think. And we are. But again, I can't stress enough, whether it's payment on these contractors or other bills, that we just need pay them timely so that we're not labeled as slow payers and suffer consequences as a community for that. So enough said. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, have we gotten reimbursed for any of the FEMA money yet at all?
No.
So is this total?
So no, I'm sorry.
The-
Nobody in Erie County has got reimbursed for anything right now. It's, FEMA's holding everything up, so it has nothing to do with late applications or anything like that. It's the government that's holding a lot of this stuff. Nothing to do with Lackawanna or somebody not doing their job, which there are probably people that probably are thinking that. But it's not that's not the case.
So once we approve this today, the reimbursement process is still in process right now.
That's what I understand.
Through the whatever machine, and we don't know, do we know what the ideal, I believe the percentage was 80%?
90%.
90.
75 from FEMA and 15 from the state. So that's 90, right?
Right.
Okay, well,
No.
FEMA only is 75.
Yes.
Right, no, I'm just saying.
Okay,
Right,
so
am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
is this the only out-of-pocket expense that we've incurred through the storm? Or we've already paid off portions of it, but this is the remaining?
I don't know if we paid portions of it.
So only portion was paid was overtime, anything the city did. As far as contracting out and contractors working any of that, nothing's been paid.
Okay, so is that, so I guess in
I'm sorry,
layman's terms, today's 1.25 million, are we hoping to get back 75% of that? Or of a greater sum?
I think it's a total of the two snowstorms and the costs thereof. Although if you saw this morning's Buffalo Evening News, there's been an adjustment from that first storm because my understanding was the state didn't declare it a state of emergency at a point in time that qualified that snowstorm as a state of emergency, something along those lines. So FEMA is backing away from paying for that, to my understanding. And other communities were mentioned in that article having suffered or about to suffer the same consequences from that first storm. The second storm is a different situation.
Right, and we're only discussing the first storm here today,
No,
right?
it's actually the
It's
two.
both? So
Yeah.
that total sum is for both?
Actually, the
that-
total sum was like 1.9 million, isn't that right?
600.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this total here today does encompass,
Portions of the
November.
first storm and all of the second storm.
Okay.
Am I right?
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
We did not hold up, delay.
I'm sorry?
We did not hold up or delay the payment. The reason that we have two outstanding vendors is because Tommy was going back and forth with them, trying to get the costs reduced. So
Okay.
there's only two vendors that haven't been paid at this point in time.
So,
And Tom was successful in getting the reduction in those costs, correct?
That is correct.
so I guess we won't see another approval coming up or creeping up on us for, this is it.
We tried to wait until we knew the final number so we wouldn't have to bother council excessively.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay. All right, we've got table items, again, the one regarding the speed bumps, and the other being the request to use Memorial Field for that April 11th, 2023 event for parking purposes. Those will be discussed as far as table items. If anyone has any, on the council has any issues with either of those two,
Was it a business certificate?
welcome to speak now.
There was a request for a business certificate from the last meeting as well regarding an auto dealership. So,
Yeah, we're not bringing it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we were having that looked at as far as a moratorium of used cars, because my understanding in looking at the agenda for the zoning or planning board, there's an amended request saying that individual no longer wants the U-Haul trucks, but wants to increase from 10 or 15 cars to 30 cars. on that?
No, that's a whole different, person. That one is in the first ward. This gentleman here is on,
No, this gentleman's also coming before the.
yeah,
planning
but
board
that's
again.
not the request,
Well,
that's
the
for
original
them.
request was for the business with the U-Haul trucks.
Correct.
That was by the owner of the business.
Well, for a used car dealership,
Right,
he
which
just
included
so
U-Haul,
happens-
which included U-Haul trucks.
right?
Well, then, he's not interested anymore. He has now leased it to another party. He wants to change the parameters of what the council originally was looking at. So.
And that's going in
it's a
front of the
completely-
planning board.
Exactly, it's a
Okay.
completely, it's the
Okay.
same property.
So we could wait till that's resolved.
Wednesday.
But the increase from 15 to 30 is a gentleman down the
Yeah, I don't know
ridge
anything about
Right,
that.
yeah, that's
on,
something, right, that's something
near
different.
Sultan's.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right, anyone else?
And just so you know, it's my understanding that, I don't know of anything of a moratorium, and if it was passed many years ago, I'm guessing by now
It
it's,
expired. There
Well-
was a moratorium in the mid to late 90s, and it was. in
Yeah, the
Buffalo
code,
News.
the code was redone in the early 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, and the moratorium on used car dealerships wasn't included in the new code.
Right.
At least that I could find. So that would make it null and void and non-existent.
How does that make it null?
It's not included in the new code when they redid the code.
Well, it's a piece of legislation that modified the original code to put a moratorium on any future parking lots. The fact that a new zoning didn't include the withdrawal or the cancellation of that moratorium, in my opinion, does not affect its viability.
But the moratorium itself was only for 18 months, which has
Well,
exceeded, we're talking
That
almost
was the
30
only other
years.
condition. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so
And it
that
was-
in and of itself
That
has
expired of
voided
its
it
own
out.
language.
Right, and I understand that the code wasn't modified, the code was completely replaced. New numbers and everything.
Yeah, so either way, it no longer exists.
Okay, then it expired as a time period. I don't think passing a new code affects the original intent.
I guess my follow-up question would be, since 1997, there has not been a used car sales lot ever approved by the council? That sounds
a new one, you mean?
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, how is that even possible?
You may be right, though. You're
I
asking a question, but it may be true.
mean, that's something.
I'm
totally
unaware of
true.
any, maybe Jeff would be aware.
I'd have to review the.
Yeah, and I'll ask, some of the employees upstairs if they're aware of any as well.
Yeah, it would be a matter of just looking at business registrations, and if
Correct.
there's been any after
Correct.
97, then that would, okay.
And the overall question is, does the city want, as a quality of life issue, more used car lots?
I guess we would have to discuss that on an as-needed basis.
Well, it would-
We can't
would
just
have to be.
paint the brush. I mean,
Well, you can by rezoning.
well, if there's a need for used car salesmen or lot, and the appropriate lot is zoned already for commercial, would that prohibit them?
Well, it wouldn't prohibit them. That's why I'm saying a rezoning or
Right, but there is no rezoning right now for that
there
area.
isn't, no.
For any area in the city?
I think it falls within, what do you call it?
The
neighborhood?
zone of 3254 South Park is neighborhood commercial.
But there's a separate zoning law specific to used car dealerships.
And isn't there a separate one for U-Haul trucks?
That I can't answer.
Well, he's already rescinded that anyway, so.
Well,
it's really-
he has an application to rescind it, right?
His first request, which we looked at 2 weeks ago, didn't involve or include U-Haul. It just so happens that he happens to have U-Haul trucks on his property.
That's not my understanding. It's right in the language. It's right in his request. He did ask for permission to park U-Hauls for rent on that premises.
On the upcoming zoning and planning board
The
agenda?
one that we tabled from the last meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna look at that again, but either way, he's rescinding that, right? He's withdrawing that
Well,
offer?
as you said, he's no longer in charge. He leased that to somebody else
Jeff said.
who has filed a different application with the planning board, which does not include the use or the leasing of U-Hauls, but increases the number of used cars to park. He parks on a lot from like 15, or I thought 15 to 30, but I'm
Yeah, that's a different person. So I guess the conversation is kind of moot, right?
well, it's in planning right now.
Yeah, so it's not on the agenda anymore, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, okay. Anything else on these tabled items? If not, then let's start the meeting. Would I ask all to rise? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Absolutely, Mr. Council President. Council, Maflahe,
Present.
Anderson. Here. Councilman Moretti has been excused. Sirdike. Present. Morano.
Here.
Department heads, Law. Here. Development.
Here.
Public Works.
Here.
Public Safety has been excused. Controller.
Here.
Recreation.
Here.
Public Information has been excused. Hearings from citizens.
Rob Reese, you're welcome to come forward, address the council.
How you guys doing?
Good,
Rob
you?
Reese, lifetime Lackawanna resident. After reading today's Buffalo News, it is very clear that New York State fell short on the FEMA money. It's not up for suggestion. Let's say the 1.2 million split in half over the two storms, we'll call it 600 and 600. My question to you is this: we're moving 1.2 million today to pay what needs to be paid. At any point, are we going to get any money from the federal government or New York State on that November storm?
I can't sit here and say that I have an answer for you, Rob. I don't know. I don't know if any of us knows what, if anything, we have.
I mean, I read this and it's pretty clear that it's not happening.
That would be the
So, I mean, does it all get absorbed by the taxpayer?
if that would be the only other alternative I'm aware
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for answering my question.
of. Thank you.
And if I may,
Sure.
I think everybody here remembers that I voted no for the overtime.
I wasn't gonna get into that, but thanks for
Well,
pointing it out.
here I am. And that was because I was in fear that there were gonna be pushbacks from either FEMA or state, and we would have to foot the bill. So in times where we are able to be fiscally responsible, I took the brunt of it, and it is what it is. And the expenses were enormous, as you know. And if we can cut costs, even if it may not be favorable, we have to do our due diligence and make sure that we are fiscally responsible, because at the end of the day, it is the taxpayers' money. So
Okay,
Hey, can I rebuttal that, please?
I don't think it's open for
Would it be
rebuttal.
necessary at this point? I mean, there were, some of the overtime is pursuant to union regulations, right?
All of it is, except for the
Department head.
department heads, which was a minimum amount of $1.6 million, was $12,000.
Yeah.
And what would you rather say that we have to eat those storms? Would you rather us not go to work and do anything and just let the snow sit here and we would be stuck in our house for another 2 weeks? I mean,
The work had to be done.
It had
that's,
to be done.
They're
Yeah, we-
salaried employees that understand the ramifications of the contracts they sign. So I don't think this is open for the discussion from the department heads. I believe this is something that was addressed to the city council, and we are responsible to give our honest opinion. And if it doesn't sit well with some individuals, then that's not all on myself. So we do protect the taxpayer. We are here because the taxpayers not only pay our salaries, but the department has salaries too. So if someone has to be the bad guy, so be it.
Well, just let's address this. Let's clear this up right now. First of all, I don't think anybody's pointing fingers at anyone else. If you want to take the responsibility because you thought that was the appropriate thing to do, that's your vote, and that's what each of us has on this council. And to say that a department head should not be allowed to speak when they are the ones who we direct our questions to, I don't think is fair or appropriate. And I think it's appropriate if they're allowed to speak. If it's pertinent, not incendiary, where this seems to be heading, and I won't let it go that far. But it did result in clarification. The majority of that overtime pay, as I'm aware of, went to contractual obligations resulting from the city union contracts. So the additional, and I didn't know what the amount was, but Tony DeSantis said it was $12,000 for the department heads that spent additional time that they were not asked to, but they volunteered on a voluntary basis, so to speak. And we decided to reimburse them on the hopes that FEMA would reimburse us for that. And that is not a disqualifying decision by FEMA. That was not a disqualification through FEMA. FEMA just is not entertaining because of the lack of a declaration of a state of emergency by the state. Otherwise, those overtime pays for the department heads who volunteered in the first snowstorm would be something that is legally, that can legally be requested from FEMA and would be reimbursable by FEMA, if I understand.
Right, but
this
if
correctly.
if it was based on union negotiations, we didn't have a vote in that.
There's no negotiation
Or
involved. That was a
whatever,
union
the civil-
contract.
the civil
It's existing.
service- The civil service and union protected individuals already were guaranteed their overtime without our approval. So what we approved were for individuals who did not fall under the guise of the union or under the umbrella of the union protection.
Well, maybe what you don't understand is that the money for overtime was not allocated because it was not in the original budget proposed and passed by this council for the year 2023. As a result, any additional funds
Would have
were
to
not in
come to
those
us.
individual individual accounts
Right.
that had to be approved by the council.
Absolutely, and I
Otherwise,
do understand that.
otherwise, I'm sorry?
And I do understand that.
Well, that's not what you said.
Well, they're not obligated to get the
You-
overtime. They weren't obligated to get the overtime.
Who are you speaking with? The union members?
No, the non-union members.
Okay, well, we decided that was $12,000.
Right, but
Okay.
nonetheless, it's $12,000 of
But
taxpayer.
you were saying that we didn't have to pass that legislation, and when we did, because we had to fund the payments for the union obligation, as the city owns the city workers, under the union contract, so we did have to
Well,
pass it.
for those individuals.
Okay. Mr. Ingham?
I was just gonna talk about the playground, but since since this was on the agenda, I'm gonna say something. Thank you. I don't know how $12,000 for people working what they were doing during the blizzard, the work blizzard we had, whatever. It's well worth it, you know. And for somebody to say because they're a manager and stuff like that, they shouldn't get it because of taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You know, some may not agree with me some way, whatever, we all have a right. But I was very thankful. I know a lot of other folks that were thankful. And just, okay, and maybe y'all can figure out some way. But it's not about, that storm affected a lot of people in so many ways. In so many ways. We're very fortunate. We have people in Lackawanna that will walk the special way to do things. A lot of places don't have that. And if, like you said, if they didn't work overtime or whatever, they stayed or whatever, didn't go home or whatever, it could have been a lot worse. And we've been sitting up there arguing, maybe more lives or something would have been lost. So I just think it's a moot point. We arguing about $12,000, whatever. You know, that's just my opinion. I'm just one man, whatever. But now let's talk about municipal housing. Municipal housing is run by Lackawanna Municipal Housing. I'm one of the commissioners. I'm also the tenant council president. We watch when people were speeding before we put those speed bumps up. And last year they did have signs up for everything. We need them bumps, whatever you call it. Whatever you want to call it, how you want to do it, whatever. I don't know how to sugarcoat it, but I'm saying this. We had people that were speeding way past on more than one occasion, we were pulling children from getting hit. So to sit up here and debate about how we gonna do this, whatever, if you need citizens approval, since it's municipal housing on built property, supposed to be for the youth, for just municipal housing people, but it's not youth, that's youth for everybody. We wanna make sure that everybody is safe. And if you need signatures or whatever, I'm sure at the next commission meeting, which is tomorrow, I will bring it up to Mr. Kuitt and see if we can get some, from citizens and that live in that complex, in those complexes to let you know how we feel about it. Those, again, I can't say it because I watch what happened in my community. I watch what happened in municipal housing area. And Your Honor, you know, for Council President, you know for the fact, some of the issues that's been in there. We wanna make sure that they are safe, all children. You know, all children, so please, we put them bumps in. We can get whatever else you need, we'll get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reno. Mr. Sinclair?
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 11, 2023.
Morano moves to adopt minutes of the regular meeting, April 11th, 2023, as written.
Maflahe seconds.
Motion by Morano, second by Maflahe, to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of April 11, 2023 as written. Maflahe?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Departmental reports, number 1.
Morano moves to receive and file departmental report 1.
Second.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirdike, to receive and file departmental report 1. Maflahe?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Communications from the council, number 2. Council President Morano requests the city council review the attached letter from the Lackawanna Traffic Safety Board regarding the previously tabled request from LMHA Executive Director Mark Kuick regarding the installation of speed bumps and signage surrounding Jeffrey Taggart Playground.
Morano moves to receive and file and take up the table item and its appropriate place in the agenda.
Anderson second.
I have a motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to receive and file, item to be taken up under table items. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Communications from Division Department Heads, number 3. Director of Public Safety requests the City Council approve the 2023 Lackawanna leg of the annual Law Enforcement Torch Run Walk to be held at 11 a.m. on Sunday, May 21st, 2023. The event will begin and end at the Senior Center, 230 Martin Road. Additional details of the event and the accompanying flyer are attached.
Morano moves to approve request, refer to the Department of Public Works Commissioner for assistance.
Maflahe seconds.
Motion by Morano, second by Muflahi, to approve request, refer to DPW Commissioner for assistance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Item number 4, Director of Recreation requests the City Council approve the use of Bethlehem Park and Ridgewood Village playgrounds by the YMCA for its Y on the Fly program. This program would run from June 27th to August 29th, 2023, on Tuesday mornings and afternoons between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Insurance documents are attached.
Maflahe moves to approve the request.
Anderson.
A motion by Muflahi, second by Anderson, to approve request. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Item number 5, Director of Purchasing requests the city clerk to advertise for bids for electricity and natural gas for the city of Lackawanna. Currently, the city is buying both from the Erie County Co-op on a variable rate, and we may be able to realize savings with a fixed rate.
Morano moves to approve request.
Second. Sirdike.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirdike, to approve request. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Item number 6, DPW Commissioner requests the City Council approve the final proposal to cover the additional cost for the Center Street reconstruction project. The additional cost totals $173,816.50. Supporting documents are attached. The public may review same in the city clerk's office.
Morano moves to approve request.
Anderson second.
Motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to approve request. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Number 7, City Controller requests the City Council approve the attached ordinance regarding contractual expenses totaling $1,255,173.93 related to the November 2022 and December 2022 snowstorms, FEMA state of emergency.
Morano moves to receive and file, act on ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirdike, to receive and file, act on ordinance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. That ordinance, an ordinance amending the 2022-2023 budget ordinance adopted May 23rd, 2022 by transferring funds in the amount of $1,255,173.93 in relation to the November and December 2022 snowstorms, states of emergency, pending reimbursement from FEMA and/or New York State, and by transferring $1,255,173.98 of unappropriated fund balance to the budget code for maintenance of streets, contractual expenses, FEMA.
Morano moves to adopt ordinance as written.
Second.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirdike, to adopt ordinance as written. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Tabled items.
Morano moves to remove item 15, tabled February 27th of this year, regarding installation of speed bumps near Jeffrey Taggart Playground.
Second.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirlik to remove item number 15, which was tabled at the February 27, 2023 regular meeting regarding the installation of speed bumps near Jeffrey Taggart Playground. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0.
Morano moves to authorize on a temporary experimental basis the reinstallation by the Lackawanna Municipal Housing Authority of the speed bumps affecting the entry and exit of Jeffrey Taggart Playground, conditioned on appropriate signage being installed notifying motorists of the bump hazard, together with securing 75% approval rate of the residents affected by said bumps.
Do you have a second?
Maflahe seconds.
Okay, so the way I've got this, based on the caucus and what you just said, and tell me if you want it amended. Moved by Morano, second by Muflahi, to approve this request on a temporary and experimental basis, including citizen input, which is 75% approval. To have the LMHA reinstall these speed bumps and to refer this to the engineering department to verify legal compliance with regards to placement of the signs and design of the speed bumps.
I'm good with that.
That work?
Mhm.
Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0.
Morano moves to remove item number 7 tabled at April 11th, 23 meeting regarding Buffalo Homestead Park's conservatory requesting the use of municipal parking lot at Memorial Field for a September 2023 event.
I have a motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to remove item number 7 tabled at the April 11th, 2023 regular meeting of the City Council regarding Buffalo Homestead Park's conservatory utilizing the municipal parking lot of Memorial Field for a September 2023 event. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0 to pull it from the table.
Morano moves to approve request.
Anderson seconds.
The motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to approve the request. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-0. Mr. Council President.
Any old business or table items that any of the council members wish to bring forward at this time?
Yes, Council President, I do have questions, the topic being the traffic light at the corner of Lackawanna and Ridge Road. We've discussed it in the past. We actually voted and approved at the request of the mayor in February 7th, 2022. The funds that were secured for said project were issued by legislator John Gilmore in the amount of $250,000. After other discussions that I've had, it was brought to my attention that the funds are no longer $250,000, but rather $150,000. However, we've never approved any of the funds to be allocated elsewhere. So if there's any question, any answers to my questions, is the amount of money, is there a certain amount of money that we do still have in the coffers for this particular project? And if it's less than $250,000, I'd like to know where the funds have gone.
Okay, first of all, I think I would ask for clarification, Councilmember Muflahi, as to what you're referring to specifically that designates the $250,000 amount.
Okay, if I may look at my phone, I didn't print up the actual request. However, I do have it saved on my cell phone. It is a letter that is addressed by the Honorable Mayor Annette Iafallo, dated, the date is February 2nd of 2022, where she requests approval for this body, the City Council, to allow me to initiate design and estimated working related to installing a full traffic signal with a crosswalk on Ridge Road at Lackawanna Avenue. And then in 2021, the City of Lackawanna received $250,000 pedestrian and vehicle safety grant from Erie County Legislator John Gilmore, which will be used toward the project. These funds were received by our comptroller's office last year, which would mean 2021. As you are aware, the traffic signals that once existed along Bridge Road in the first ward were gradually removed in the years after the Bethlehem Steel Plant closed. As a result, it is very difficult for citizens living in the neighborhoods off the south side of Ridge Road to cross safely. With the increase of traffic, vehicle traffic now occurring on Ridge Road from the growing Renaissance Commerce Park, other thriving businesses in the area, including Quick Creek and Sultan Restaurant and Bakery, the county's future plans, and the entry point for Commerce Park at Ridge Road, a traffic signal at Ridge Road and Lackawanna is an absolute necessity. With the ongoing supply chain issues impacting the county, it may take several months before the parts to assemble the traffic light being available. Thus, it is important that we begin the design and estimating phases. With your approval, I can have DPW Commissioner DeSantis begin the work immediately. So this was dated February 2nd. February 7th, it was on the agenda, item number 7
Of 22?
of 2022,
Okay.
correct?
Thank you. Sorry.
So the request, it says, communications from the mayor, item agenda number 6, request city council approval to initiate design estimating work related to installing a full traffic signal with crosswalk on Ridge Road and Lackawanna Avenue. In 2021, the city of Lackawanna received a $250,000 pedestrian and vehicle safety grant from the Erie County legislator, John Gilmore, which will be used towards this project. And then I also have it where at the meeting, the minutes we all approved it. Every single last one of us who,
What's the date of the
I'm sorry, the date of the
communication
meeting,
number 6, the one you're referring to?
the date of the letter is February 2nd, 2022, and then our meeting was February 7th of 2022, and it was still when we were doing Zoom meetings. After researching this particular topic, I went through the item agendas, looking to see if we moved any budget lines, if we allocated any of the funds, extracting it from the 250 and putting it towards something else. I didn't find anything. And quite frankly, if we're looking at a bill for a traffic light for $500K, and we already secured half of it, I think at minimum, we could start ordering the lights before further delays occur. And for a year to pass, a year and 2 months to pass, and we haven't did anything after we've approved the funds and approved the project, not only is it frustrating, but I have to ask rhetorically, why are we here? If we're approving things and things don't get into motion, what is our vote? What is it? Why are we here? What can we do to help? I'm willing to facilitate as best as I can. If there's a need for additional hands or minds to help get things going, I'm here, I'm available. This is a old business that I may not be able to get all the answers that I need, but this something has to happen.
Well, I think the first question, and Linda, I don't know if you're in a position to answer that, but there was feedback on that $250,000 grant, so to speak, from legislator Gilmore, that it was indicated parts of that had been used for DPW expenditures or something along those lines, that they had been allocated for that purpose from the $250,000, and only $150,000 of that $250,000 was designated to be applied towards the traffic light. That seems to not be the case, based on what Councilmember Muflahi just read, that there is legislation on the books to move this issue forward from last year. And do you know where we stand today, and have any of those monies been used for anything else?
I know that the money is sitting in a deferred revenue account. It has not been allocated to any project by creation of budget codes to fund things. So it's sitting in the deferred revenue code. I know that a lot of times with these grants, if you have multiple submissions, DASNY tends to clump together projects and give you one lump sum amount. So that may be, I don't know where the paperwork is because it was before I started, but I suspect, because I've seen that with some other DASNY grants, I suspect that's the instance here.
Would we know that it was specifically granted by DASNY? Is that,
There
is
should,
that basic?
there should be something.
It is always.
I haven't been able to find any paperwork on it, but maybe we could reach out and try to determine that. But there should be something that specifies that.
Do you know by any chance if it is 250 versus 150?
I know that what we received, what we have held in our deferred revenue account was the 250,000. I have a little note that I found from the prior comptroller that references it and shows a breakdown, but it's handwritten. So I don't have anything in stone, I guess you'd say, just the note.
Well, the letter that was just referred to seems to indicate that there was $250,000 granted to the city for the purpose of that light alone.
I haven't seen that letter. I'll have to look at it and research it.
Are you referring to the letter that I read? Okay, it's on the city website. Yeah. It's part of the agendas of 2022 and the minutes of 2022.
So I'll have to look at it. I wasn't here then. So.
I'll shoot you a copy, Laura.
Thank you.
Mr. DeSantis, do you know anything about this?
I don't know anything about where the money is, right? Because I don't get involved in it. But I do like to say that when you apply for a grant, you cannot do any work on a project until that grant money is released to the city. Any money spent on a project before the money is released will not be reimbursed. The only thing that can be started is any kind of engineering fees such as design or cost estimates and that. But you can't put a shovel in the ground, you can't order material, you can't order anything or spend any money on that project unless you're gonna pay for it yourself.
So do I understand correctly, and let me know, it would appear by what you just said that the $250,000 earmarked for that light couldn't be used for anything else and should still be in the account?
Correct. If it was released, if there has to be a DASNY application or something to say that that money has been released to the city.
Well, the mayor's letter indicates it was in-house, in our account, so.
I can't speak on that. I don't want to say the wrong thing on that.
But that was what.
I just want to, just let everybody, inform everybody, you cannot start a project, especially if you have a grant for that project until that grant, whoever it is, DASNY, state, whoever, releases that money.
Okay.
Even though it's in our account.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank
Linda?
you. Okay.
So
anything else?
would it be fair to say that maybe the mayor had it worded inappropriately where it says, with your approval, I can have DPW Commissioner DeSantis begin that work immediately? How would our approval then be translated, or how does that go into motion? What would be the next step after our?
I think that maybe she might have just wanted to inform the council of the project that is possibly being done. Consider, correct.
I think we have to consult with the mayor,
I think so, yeah, there's a clarification.
We'll get you the answers you need.
All right, appreciate it.
Okay, anything else?
I got some.
Yes.
This is real old business, as far as I'm concerned. It seems like the annual Rite of Spring, our four-wheel extravaganza, starting up, they're racing all over the city. My wife was walking with my grandkids to the France Seals, and 12 of them came off of the hill right in front of them, riding all over South Park. They're going up and down Cleveland. I don't know about in your word.
I haven't seen them yet.
I get up in the night, I hear, oh, they're racing around it. I don't know, you hear them?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know, something's gotta be done. I mean, we gotta pass some laws and some crackdowns here, and we gotta have a comprehensive plan or something. I don't know. I didn't wanna bother Mr. Wolf this week.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll mention it to him.
Captain, I don't wanna put you on a spot.
I'm not here to address the council.
Yeah, no, I understand, no problem.
I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, but
No,
not
no,
in this forum.
no,
I'm not speaking out of turn.
no, but,
And there's not only four-wheel drive
I don't know.
vehicles, there are also motorbikes, dirt
Yeah,
bikes.
I mean, it's constant. I
Yeah,
mean, are they coming up and down Cleveland, I hear? I'm getting calls from people over on Cleveland, my street, over by the playground and behind, and they're brazen. They go right to the gas station and fill up.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Some of them have
You
helmets.
don't see any of that in Orchard Park or Amherst or East Aurora, you know.
Maybe that's the
Like,
place to catch them, at the gas station.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that's,
The
that's
city
a,
had a huge problem, the city of Buffalo had a huge problem with that, especially during COVID. People were bored and people had a lot of money to spend and they were buying them up, and then the city did a great
Well, they did
job.
something
And they were
about
doing
it.
helicopter monitoring and everything. We do have to add layers of law enforcement to help alleviate this problem because I'm bracing myself for what the summer holds. And the little steps that we could take with speed bumps, with elevated law enforcement being a bit more aggressive.
the
How are we gonna
use-
catch them? I
the
mean,
use of drones has been suggested, as well as the council authorized purchasing certain additional equipment from the police department and the DPW that might help with enforcement.
well,
But we'll see.
we did approve something last year, but I don't know. All right, well, I'll bring it up at the next meeting. I'm gonna put it on the agenda. We'll see
Very
what's
good.
going on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, then I'm gonna move to adjourn this meeting, and I move so in the name of Valentine Wolf, who just passed away. The Wolf family, as you all know, our Director of Public Safety, retired state trooper. Brother is a retired state trooper. Many of them served in the armed services, great pillars of our community. And it was a significant loss to have Mr. Wolf pass away. His wake was today and his funeral is tomorrow. So I move that we adjourn this meeting in his memory. At all?
Yes, please.
All right, so I have a motion by Morano, second by et al. To adjourn the meeting in memory of Valentine Wolf. Muflahi,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Sirlik,
Yes.
Morano,
Yes.
carried 4-0.
Thank you. Good night.